can help me.
Yeah. Oh, there is a connection there. Then if there is one more, wait. If there is one more connection, then put also this. No, but no, that requires a plug. No. It requires a charger. I cannot bring, but I think there is enough.
Can you switch on? Switch mo.
That light.
Nan, ito. This one. Baka meron dyan.
So you require this thing for the.
Can we in your laptop?
Yeah, it's too far away, or
Yeah, and then laptop is. Yeah, it's So good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to this afternoon's recollection. Congratulations to the organizers, Moses, Annabelle, and the family for organizing this Advent recollection. So maybe because of the break, some people have gone back. Maybe if you come more here, then I don't have to turn. Would you like to just come a little this side in front? Just a little, so that, yeah. So the beginning of Advent season today, the 1st of December, and this year the Advent is short. And we have gathered together for this recollection to basically prepare for Christmas. And Christmas basically is that God decided to share His love in a concrete manner with human beings. In a concrete, tangible manner with human beings, He shares His love. And therefore, the concrete means is that He sends His own Son into to the earth and share His love with all of us. So that is the fundamental meaning of Christmas, right? Yeah, so it is all centered around love. God's love, God sharing His love with us. What I want to present today for you is the latest encyclical of the Pope, Dilexit Nos. Dilexit Nos is the Latin word for He loved us. The meaning of that is He loved us. Pope Francis released it on the 24th of October, towards the end of the Synod. You know that Synod was going on in Rome in the month of October. More than 400 participants were there, including Cardinal, and Pope was there practically every day. And during that time, he released this encyclical titled, He Loved Us. First of all, you understand what an encyclical is, yeah? An encyclical is a letter that the Pope writes for the whole Catholic world. Papal encyclicals provide analysis in the light of the Gospel and of the tradition of the Church on relevant issues for the faithful. Other popes also have written other encyclicals. Pope Francis has already written 3 before that, and this is his 4th encyclical. The first one was Lumen Fidei, that he wrote in 2013, then Laudato Si, which was all about environment and friendly with that, in 2015, and in 2020 he wrote Fratelli Tutti. So now he has written the 4th one, which is called Dilexit Nos. I told you already, He loved us. So if the Laudato Si encyclical, the Pope envisioned the world as God intends it to be, and with Fratelli Tutti, he outlined how to achieve it. With Dilexit Nos, he teaches how to prepare the heart through faith and love. This encyclical has 5 chapters. I will quickly tell you. You don't need to remember everything. The importance of the heart, not just the physical heart which is pumping blood, but the heart which feels, the heart which loves, the heart which is hurt, that heart. Secondly, second chapter is the gestures and words of Christ's love. We will come to that. The third chapter is the church's reflection on the heart of Jesus. Remember, I began by saying Christmas is all about God sharing His love, God sharing His heart. And this encyclical is all about the heart of Jesus. The fourth chapter is the rereading of sacred scriptures. And the fifth chapter is the communal and social dimension of devotion. So, what does Dilexit Nos means? As I told you already, it means He loved us. So this is not just an invention from the Pope's mind. Suddenly he thought of something and let me name it, He loved us. But the Pope takes it from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, chapter 8, verse 37, in which St. Paul says, Christ loved us, making clear that nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. Now, this is one thing that we all have to just not only remember in our memory. Yesterday I was telling people, like you see this on coins, €1 coin, €2 coins, how things are actually embossed on it. Hello? So that it cannot be wiped out. That way, this word that nothing can separate us from the love of God, you must let it be printed strongly in such a way as on the coins, €2, €3, €5, whatever, can never be removed, wiped out unless it is burnt in fire. So also these words, which nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. And this encyclical is all about human and divine love of the heart of Jesus. It's not very long, but it is 141 pages. Encyclical. So it is a bit long, many hours in 45 minutes, this one. And it is dedicated, as I said, to the human and divine love of the heart of Jesus Christ. Remember, human and divine love. Because sometimes what happens, when we think of the love of Jesus, we think, Jesus, He is Son of God, He is God. What does He know about love? How we love here on earth is different. Diba? We can think like that. But what the Pope is trying to explain through this encyclical is that Jesus' love is fully human. So just as human love hurts or gets hurt or gets emotional, gets happy when you are loved by somebody, or you are happy to love somebody, similarly, everything of that applies to Jesus. Everything. Plus, it is sourced from the divine love. So that is an extra advantage. So it is actually about the sacred love of the sacred heart of Jesus. But before we go further, we can just quickly look at what is the essential teachings in general about Pope Francis. Pope Francis speaks about social justice and equality, always. For him, everybody is equal, and that is, praise God, that as Catholics we have this belief that God created us all equal, human beings. We have made differences, rich and poor, black and white, Indians and Austrians and Americans and Filipinos. These are all man-made divisions. God made us brothers and sisters, human beings, all with equal rights, equal dignity. Everybody, whoever and whatever we are. Then his teachings have been about spiritual renewal, which is also what we are doing here during this recollection. We are trying to have a spiritual renewal for the rest of the 24 days, at least till we reach Christmas. And then the Pope also is trying through his different teachings to reform the church. You know, church is not a perfect institution. Church is made of human beings. Pope is Pope, but he is human. Cardinals are cardinals, but they are humans. We are priests or nuns, we are all human beings, like you, and all of us are same. We have our weaknesses, therefore, the church is constantly in need of reform, of corrections. And the Pope Francis is constantly trying to do that. The Pope also wants to emphasize on evangelization and mission, as well as other things on theology and doctrine. There are 7 themes in Dilexit Nos on the human and divine love of the heart of Jesus. What are the 7 themes? Nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. This I told you, and it will be a theme that keeps recurring. Nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. That is to be understood. Your weaknesses, your sins, your poverty, your disappointments, your getting into depression, nothing. And Paul writes that very clearly in chapter 8. What will separate us from the love of Christ? This is from the letter of St. Paul. Will anguish or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or the sword? So many things he says. These are all dangerous things. Sword, famine, peril, anguish, distress, depression. But he says nothing can separate us from the love of Christ. And this is not just words, because he proved it. Not only by coming down on earth, as we will celebrate for Christmas, but while on earth, as the 2nd chapter says, through his words and actions, he showed this love, that nothing can separate us from his love. And finally, he then gave his life on the cross. So in all these things, we conquer overwhelmingly through him who loved us. The second point is the power of the heart in a fragmented world. The Pope critiques what he calls the liquid nature of contemporary life, marked by superficiality and consumerism. Superficiality and consumerism. I don't need to speak more about that, how superficial our lives sometimes become. In this humdrum of life, the lights, the glance, the blitz and fashion and competition, and who is better than who, and who earns more, and who has a bigger house, all this is consumerism. I told you already in the sermon, today I heard on the radio that as compared to last year, this first Advent weekend, there were 40% more sales. This is consumerism. Do people really need all those things that they are buying? I can tell you, There will be people who have not yet opened their parcels of last year's gifts. They're still kept there, but they want to buy more. And they have already given all those things. They are wondering, half of the time will be wasted instead of preparing for Christmas. Half of the time will be wasted. What shall I give now? What gift shall I buy? I gave last year this one. Previous year I gave that one. Now what? Rather than, this is what the Pope is criticizing. Consumerism. Of course, business is making money out of it. They are creating needs in people and wants, not needs, needs and wants. What things you don't need, they are creating want. So the business can flourish. They can make profit. People's pockets become empty. But more than pockets, their hearts become empty. Their hearts are unable to concentrate on what God is offering. So Pope says, we find ourselves immersed in societies of serial consumers who live from day to day, dominated by the hectic pace and bombarded by technology, lacking in the patience needed to engage in the process that an interior life by its very nature requires. An interior life, spiritual life, not just on 1st December we come together for a recollection and thank Moses and company that you organized the recollection. Now we can go back, only 40% more sale. I will make it 60% more sale than last year. So I will go and shop now. Then our recollection has no meaning. Our recollection should lead us to interior life. The third theme is the cross as the ultimate expression of Christ's love. The encyclical states that the pierced heart of Christ embodies all God's declarations of love present in the scriptures. Our scriptures are full of God's love. I don't know if I gave you this example of this famous, now she has become quite famous, this woman called Ayama Hirsi Ali. Have you heard of this woman? Ayama Hirsi Ali? Nobody? This woman, Ayama Hirsi Ali, is an Ethiopian by birth. She was a staunch Muslim, staunch. Then she came to Netherlands to study in the university, and there she went through some crisis and left Islam and became an atheist. No belief in God. God doesn't exist. And she was very happily joining with all the other atheists, that famous man Richard Dawkins and others. I think you know these names. Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens. These are all card holder atheists. There are others as well. She joined them, proclaiming that there is no God, this is all stupid, this, that and the other. Then, suddenly she went into deep depression. Deep depression. And she went looking for help from all kinds of people, counseling, medicine, this, that and the other. And nothing was helping her. Finally, she reached some counselor who told her, Hirsi, your problem is spiritual bankruptcy. Did you get it? Your problem is spiritual bankruptcy. What does that mean? It means that you are moving around with everything else, but your spiritual life is completely empty, bankrupt. Okay. Then she begins to search again, and to her good luck, she comes across Christ, the scriptures, and accepts Christ, and she is now so happy. And the interesting part, what I saw on YouTube last month, a discussion, a debate. She is debating now with Richard Dawkins, who is an atheist. He's still an atheist. She was an atheist, first Muslim, then atheist. Now, good friend of his first, now sitting and debating against one another. Anyway, that's a long story, but very nice point that I got from there. So in this debate, Richard Dawkins had the first chance to make a statement. So he says, oh, Christianity, he says, New Testament. It's all talking about sin and torture and suffering and cross and pain and this. Who wants to listen to all that, he says. This lady, very calm, Hirsi Ali says, Richard, they are good friends earlier. She says, Richard, you are completely wrong. The New Testament is all about love. It is God's love shared by Jesus in concrete human terms. Accept that, love. And that is what Pope Francis is trying to do. He loved us. This is the title of this encyclical. The Sacred Heart of Jesus, which loved us. The fourth point is love as a missionary work. Pope Francis also writes about the communitarian, social and missionary dimension of all authentic devotion to the heart of Christ, adding that Christ's heart not only leads us to the Father, but also sends us forth to our brothers and sisters. This is a very fundamental teaching of Pope Francis. Don't sit together and be happy that God has loved me and thank you very much, Lord, that you have loved me. I am very fine. My children are fine. My brothers and sisters are fine. My countrymen are fine. Thank you. Doesn't work like that. For Pope Francis, it is important that if you have received the love of Christ, you have to share it with your brothers and sisters. He is one man who is constantly criticizing all the world leaders for not accepting the migrants. Migrants are not having pleasure in crossing the seas and dying in the Mediterranean or dying in the deserts or dying somewhere else, falling out of the boats with their families. They're doing it because they need it. And that's what he's trying to teach the world, that your love that you receive from God has to go to your brothers and sisters. The fifth point is acts of reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The encyclical discusses the Catholic tradition of making acts of reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And the Pope says, reparation entails the desire to render compensation for the injuries inflicted on the Lord who is love. Complicated words, I'll make it simple. What it means is that because we are weak human beings, we are not always aware of what right we should do, or at the moment of impulse, we make mistakes, we commit sins, and thereby we offend God. But what do we do to repair that offense? That is called reparation. To repair that damage that we do to God or to God's heart. And what Pope is trying to say, that reparation entails the desire to render compensation for the injuries that we inflict on the Lord who is love. So again, coming back to Jesus' love is fully human, and that's why he gets hurt also. Don't think that Jesus is not looking, or he is somewhere up there, we can do what we want and he won't come to know. No. He is constantly with us with his human heart. In this encyclical, the Pope also shares insights from the saints and what the Church's other teachings are. The seventh aspect is the wounded heart of Christ as a wellspring of peace and unity. As modern society faces what Francis calls a wave of secularization and division, he sees the heart as a source of unity. There is a wave of secularization, you know that, no? In our world. Just 2 weeks ago here in Niederösterreich, outside of Vienna, the next district. Do you know? I'm sure you read that. They wanted to remove the crosses from the hospital bedrooms. Remember? No. Yeah. They wanted to remove the crosses, the whole of Niederösterreich from the hospitals, hospital rooms, and I think also from schools. Fortunately, that has changed. But this is a wave of secularization. Why should we have a cross in the classroom or in the room of a sick man? Oh, my dear friend, we have been having this for last 300 years. And it has helped people to look at the suffering of the Lord and how He suffered for us and how He loves us. Fortunately, that rule has been now put into shelves. Maybe it will come again after some time. But this is secularization. We don't need God. We don't need the cross. We don't need religion. And Pope is warning against that, because what he says, people have lost the meaning and function of the heart. They are only using their brains, or thinking that they are using their brains. A famous philosopher called Pascal had once said, the heart has reasons that the mind knows not of. Have you heard of this? The heart has reasons that the mind doesn't know of. That means the brain has different reasons. The heart has different reasons. And what Pope is trying to say through this Delixit Nos is bring the world back to the heart. Let us live more by heart than by just brains. Then why has this encyclical been released now? The document is part of, this is important to listen. The document is part of ongoing celebrations marking the 350th anniversary of the first apparition of the Sacred Heart of Jesus to Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. I'm sure you have heard of her. 16th of October is her feast day. Margaret Mary Alacoque, to whom Jesus appeared. The celebrations began on 27th December 2023, last year, on the anniversary, and are scheduled to end on the Feast of the Sacred Heart, 27 June 2025. Because it is about the Sacred Heart. Jesus appeared to her with her heart, and that's why the Pope is taking the occasion to write an encyclical on the Sacred Heart of Jesus. He loved us. Pope believes that devotion to the Sacred Heart has the power to illuminate the path of ecclesial renewal, but also to say something significant to a world that seems to have lost its heart. So remember, he wants to come back to the heart. Then he mentions about what is the devotion to the Sacred Heart. The Sacred Heart represents the love of Jesus as both fully human and fully divine. I already talked about that. Although it has biblical and early Christian roots, it became a widespread and popular devotion after 1673 due to the visions of Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque. Christ appeared to the French nun for 4 times, showing her his heart and affirming his love for all people. I just want to take one digression from here. You know, we have beautiful statue there of Our Lady. I am a great devotee of Our Lady. I had beautiful experience. Last year I went to Medjugorje, I have been to Lourdes, I have been to Fatima, I have been to a place in Belgium called Banu. I have been in India to pilgrimage places. Very good. And we, particularly the Filipinos more than others, have great devotion to Virgin Mary. In South we have in Velankani, lot of people go there. Wonderful. We must honor the mother because she's the mother of Jesus. But you know what happens sometimes? We pay so much attention to Mary and Mama Mary, who is wonderful, she's our mother, that in the bargain we forget the heart of her Son, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, which throbs out of love for you and for me. That's why sometimes, Protestants may be right, sometimes. Of course, they are other extreme. They are other extreme in the sense they don't want anything to do with Mary. We are other extreme. We have only things to do with Mary and less to do with. What we need is to strike a balance. Yes, Mary needs to be honored, but let us also bring our attention to the heart of Jesus, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Poor heart of Jesus had to appear to Margaret Alacoque to tell the world, please do this also because my heart throbs for you. So what are the key messages of this encyclical? Once again, Pope is reminding us of how devotion to the Sacred Heart is a profound expression of faith and encounter with the unending love of God. I told you right in the beginning, love it is. Nothing can separate us from the love of God. What is our devotion to that love? How do we express our commitment to that love which cannot be separated? There are beautiful parables in the Gospels, the prodigal son, the lost sheep, the man who went at different hours to hire the workers for his vineyard, and even at the 11th hour whom he hired, he is paying the same amount as he paid to all. That is God's love, overflowing. Doesn't matter if you were the last. For me, you are still equal. That is God's love. Doesn't exclude anybody. You were not hired at the 10th hour, at the 11th. Don't worry, come. I not only hire you, I pay you the full amount. That is God's love. And that sometimes we have missed. Then Pope explains how our lifestyle today, with its frenzied pace and its emphasis on consumerism, means that we are not paying enough attention to the heart. I already spoke about that. He warns us of the dangers of individualism, telling us that this stops us from having a true encounter with our neighbor. This individualism is more of a Western sickness and less of our Asian culture. We are more bound to our kith and kin, and also in Africa. We are more together. Ubuntu, yeah? Ubuntu is that we are all together in it. We go together. We are together. We are one. Here, this culture has brought about individualism. My privacy, my limits, keep off. This is mine. And that is actually an obstacle to loving our neighbor. Then Pope says that this leads to the realization that an authentic personal relationship with Christ, strengthened by devotion to the Sacred Heart, cannot be separated from loving our neighbor. I think this is very important. I just want to take one more diversion here. That love of God cannot be separated from the love of the neighbor. You know, there was a famous philosopher called Martin Buber. Actually, he was an Austrian. Martin Buber is a famous philosopher who wrote his philosophy. He was a Jew, whose first book was I and Thou, I and you. Ich und du. In German he wrote first, I and Thou. Then he wrote the next book, Between Man and Man, or Between Man and Human Beings, he meant. And there are several beautiful things there, but one thing I would like to tell you what impressed me very much and which keeps on impressing me very much. You know what he says? You cannot come to know yourself except through Thou, through the other. That means, for example, my name is Dominic. How do I come to know that I am Dominic? Because I am baptized? Yeah, I could be baptized and be thrown away and nobody will know. But unless others start calling me Dominic, I begin to recognize that I am Dominic. Because others start addressing me as Dominic. So only through others I come to know about my existence. And my existence is no existence without the other. This is a very profound teaching of Martin Buber and his thought, which continuously the popes have been trying to tell us. Then Pope says that it is important to note that the need for us to work for unity and peace in our world, a unity and peace that can only be brought about by love. He condemns the complicity, tolerance, or indifference of other countries during the outbreak of new wars and speaks powerfully of the effect of conflict on the human person, evoking the image of elderly women who have lost their homes and are forced to mourn for their children and grandchildren. Pope Francis also reiterates his call for us to care for our common home, saying, "For it is by drinking of Christ's love that we become capable of forging bonds of fraternity, of recognizing the dignity of each human being, and of working together to care for our common home." So not that the farmers will take care of the land, I will just take care of my building, air conditioner and vacuum cleaner. That is my work. Farmers can take care of the forest and the land and wells and rivers. No, it is a common responsibility because this is our common home. We are reminded that God's love for us is never ending, and that filled with this love, we are also called to share it with others. We need once more to take up the Word of God and to realize in doing so that our best response to the love of Christ's heart is to love our brothers and sisters. Back to the same thing. 2-3 Sundays ago, we had this gospel. They came and asked Jesus, "What is the first commandment?" The young man, remember? What is the first commandment? Jesus answered, "Hear, O Israel, Lord your God is your only God. He is the only Lord, and you must worship him with all your heart and with all your soul." And that man had not asked for the second commandment. Remember? Jesus added immediately. And the second commandment is like that. What was the second? Love your neighbor as yourself. This is what Pope is trying to say, that you cannot separate these two. Jesus brought it together. He was asked only one commandment, but there is no only one commandment. These two go hand in hand. So this is one thing that one needs to always remember. Now, back to Margaret Alacoque, who lived at the Visitation Convent and all that, and she was given this messages. That occasion marked the beginning of a period of celebrations that will end on June 27 next year. I already mentioned about that. The Pope says, "I believe it will do us great good to meditate on various aspects of the Lord's love, which can illuminate the path of ecclesial renewal and say something meaningful to a world that seems to have lost its heart." Now, ecclesial renewal. What is ecclesial renewal? Renewal of the church. Now, please note, church is not the Vatican. Church is also not Cardinal Schönborn or this particular building here in Donau City. Church is the people of God, you and I. When we talk about renewal of the church, it means our renewal. What Moses and others are trying to do through this recollection is to make a renewal of our life. And when we renew our life, the church will be renewed. Everything will become anew. As I said already, we are all weak, we are all human beings, We make mistakes. We need to make reparation, as the Pope has said, to the Sacred Heart. The present document can help us see that the teaching of the social encyclicals Laudato Si and Fratelli Tutti is not unrelated to our encounter with the love of Jesus. So, once again, the 5 chapters, I will go quickly through it. The importance of the heart. This chapter reflects on what we mean when we speak of the heart, with reference to ancient Greek civilization and the Bible. The Pope argues that in time of social upheaval, we need to start speaking once more about the heart. So remember, this has 141 pages. Yeah? Therefore, the Pope is writing in detail, point by point, taking references of the Bible, of the ancient Greek philosophy, of the church fathers, of the traditions. He's bringing all that together and building a point for the importance of the heart. He writes, in this age of artificial intelligence, we cannot forget that poetry and love are necessary to save humanity. In chapter 2 again, in the short second chapter, Francis reflects on the concrete actions and words of Christ that reveal the depth of his love for human beings. Constantly, he was always there. He was there for the blind, for the deaf, for the dumb, for the lepers, for the people who could not, people who were possessed with thing, a lady who was caught in adultery, the tax collector, all kinds of people. And people were wondering, he goes and eats with sinners. But that is the love of God. That is his action. Jesus is showing not just by his words that I love you. He is forgiving sins. He is healing people. He is making them whole. The third chapter is again, the heart has loved us so greatly. The Pope then considers what devotion to the heart of Christ consists of. It is not the veneration of a single organ apart from the person of Jesus. Instead, what we contemplate and adore is the whole of Jesus. Yeah, this misunderstanding should be cleared. Please don't take only this Sacred Heart only as that one piece of the organ of as heart of Jesus, and I only am devoted or devout to the heart of Jesus. No, it involves the whole person of Jesus and not just one organ. He urges Catholics not to get hung up on the particular images of Christ's heart, some of which may strike us as tasteless and not particularly conducive to affection or prayer. You know, I was telling yesterday to people, sometimes this heart of Jesus is pierced with a sword. Yeah, we see that picture, no? Now for some people that may be too cruel. Jesus' heart pierced with, and it may not help some people. Yeah, but we need to go beyond that and see what is behind that. Behind that is the person of Jesus. And it is to that person of Jesus that we want to relate and make our devotion to. Francis suggests that just as devotion to the Sacred Heart challenged some philosophical thought at that time, today also he says that there is kind of different thoughts in the church who do not want to give. I don't know if people who are watching online. Yeah, Annabelle, you have a question.
Yeah, he wants us to be united, but it's conflicting somehow with the traditional Latin Mass people. He is trying to exclude them, or he's canceling his rights.
Whether he is excluding them or they are excluding themselves from what the church is teaching. The Second Vatican Council has clearly elucidated this mass, methods of mass. Yeah? But Pope Benedict had allowed in certain cases, yeah. But what the reports which came around from around the world in these last few years, that this was creating a division in the church. And I'll tell you how. Because some people who go for these Latin masses, they think they have a special relationship to God. The others are, a little of the other grade. So, of course, they may be finding it useful. That's why Pope is not completely forbidding. Pope is saying that with special permission from the bishop.
Yeah, that makes it difficult because.
Yeah, that is difficult. Difficult, nothing is easy. Don't talk about we come together and worship together rather than that I want to have Latin Mass and you can go for English Mass or German Mass or Hindi Mass, whatever. There is a prescribed way and that is assigned. Now, if some people want, then they should go and get special permission, explain to the bishop what is the reason. The bishop will assign a parish, will assign.
To have it regularly.
That depends on the bishop. That depends on the bishop, his decision. Now, this talk is not about Latin Mass and this one. It is about the Sacred Heart of Jesus and love of God. But it's a good question whether it is a division. Okay. What else? Anybody else? Yes? See, yeah. Yeah, good. This is a good distinction to make. Good distinction to make. And this is very important to explain to the Protestants as well. We do not adore both the hearts. We do not adore. We adore the Sacred Heart of Jesus, but we venerate. There is a big difference between adoration and veneration. We venerate Mother Mary. We do not give them the same status. She plays an important role. And there is a huge theological discussion among the Protestant theologians and Catholic theologians. And this is a big issue. But for us to be clear, we do not adore the heart of Mary. We venerate the heart of Mary. Okay.
But they claim that you go to Mary, she will show you to Jesus. Where Jesus is, Mary is there, and where Mary is, Jesus is there. And I mean, anecdotal myself,
Yeah, you're right.
It's true. The more you get your devotion stronger to Mary, the closer you go to Jesus. So that's why other devotees, they don't really exclude Mama Mary, or they don't see it a competition, but it's a way to go into Jesus.
Correct. Certainly, Mary, and that is a prayer. We sing that hymn as well, yeah? Lead us to Jesus, your loving Son. Yeah? Lead us to your loving Son. Come with us, Mary, come. That's the hymn. Come with us, Mary. Come with us, Mary. Come with us, Mary, come. Yes. So it is her role to lead us to her Son, and it is always in her apparitions or wherever she has always told people to follow her Son. One more question, yes. Last one, yeah, Moses? Last question? Yeah. Yes, yes. Loud.
Thank you for the introduction. I really want to get your explanation on what is the Pope's, let's say, advice
Artificial intelligence.
Yes. So going by the trends of events and how artificial intelligence is, going haywire. So what does the Pope really expect?
Yeah, okay. First of all, in this, he is only making a passing reference to artificial intelligence, saying that people should not just depend on artificial intelligence, but there is an aspect of poetry, music, art, and love, which are not part of artificial intelligence because they come from the heart. That is one thing. Secondly, for church, it is becoming an issue. It will, whether it becomes a moral issue and how to go about it, the church itself will have to cope with it, as the world has to cope with it. The governments have to also cope with it. What policies will the governments make to meet this artificial intelligence and the whole influx of social media and what have you? So, the church does not yet have a clear policy. The church cannot stop the development of artificial intelligence. As also in scientific world, the church does not obstruct scientific development, but the church comes up with ethical questions. Ethical questions. If it affects the dignity, for example, with artificial intelligence, will the poor be exploited? Will the women's bodies be exploited, misused, abused? Or the poor? How will this affect human life? And the church can only make a suggestion to the world how it should go about. The church has no army, the church has no authority to stop certain things. It can tell its faithful that this is the limit that you can go so far, and beyond that you can't. In certain issues like abortion, yes, it has very clear teachings how you should deal, and also to deal with your neighbor, that everybody has equal dignity. A church has a clear teaching. But artificial intelligence is still developing. Okay? Yes?
This year, the topic is about the encyclical of Pope Francis. I've seen, I've read so many internet magazines. There are Catholics, devout Catholics, top leaders of Catholic community, but are criticizing Pope Francis, especially in his position about, for example, the LGBTQ and so on and so forth.
This is,
what can you say about
we
this?
just discussed that during the talk. I mentioned that the conservatives in the church, and Pope calls them also Pharisees. At the time of Jesus, there were Pharisees who were more interested in the rule. What does the rule say? This woman should be stoned. That was our rule. That you should eat food with washing your hands. That on Sabbath you cannot do this. The modern day Pharisees are saying that those who are like this should be excluded from the church. Jesus welcomed all people. That is so clear in the New Testament. I gave you enough examples. And there are, read and read, you will find what compassion, what love Jesus showed to everybody. And what Pope Francis is trying to do is to go back to the spirit of the gospel. But those people who think themselves they are holy, Pharisees, they think, oh, I have been observing the Catholic faith so faithfully, and I have been observing my Catholic life so good, and now this fellow is coming and he's sitting with me in the church, so what is my holiness to?
But Father, they a man and a woman who are not having the sacrament of marriage is forbidden.
See, this is, you are going back to the rules.
Wait, Father. But then more so with a man and a man to be married, to be living together.
That church is not approving. Who said church is approved man-to-man marriage?
No.
Which church has approved?
Then, okay, I got you. Because it seems like I thought you have included that.
Included not in marriage, but they are included in the community.
Yeah.
If they come here, I cannot say now two of you are friends that you are excluded. No. And that they should also experience the love of Christ. How do they experience? By chasing them out?
No.
That's what. Okay?
Yeah, but their practices we don't accept, of course.
Sure. What church also is teaching the same thing, what you are objecting to? Yeah. Okay? Alright? One more question. Okay.
I'm confused because in the church there are cardinals or priests or bishops that are criticizing the Pope.
Yes.
And I believe there is an oath or a vow of this priest that there is an obedience as Pope at the head of the church. If they are not following the Pope, then what is that?
That is the whole problem. If you don't follow, then you can go any way you want, you see. Of course, that is also a rule that you should not, if you are part of the church, he is the head of the church.
So if you see the Pope is not correct, should they follow the Pope?
If they can prove that Pope is wrong. Yeah? If they can prove that the Pope is going against the teachings of Jesus Christ, then of course, our conscience is more important than all the rules. That's what St. Paul also teaches.
More important than obedience.
Yes, your conscience is more important and you will be judged by your conscience. But if they are criticizing only because they think that they are holier than others, and that the Pope is making confusion by inviting the sinners and homosexuals or whatever, then of course they are, in my understanding, playing the role of Pharisees. They want to, that's why Jesus said, listen to what they say but don't do what they do. Because they preach but they don't practice. And it will be very interesting if you come to know the lives, I'm not saying about any individual, but it will be very interesting to discover what is the life of some of these popes or some of these bishops and cardinals who are criticizing the Pope.
And there is one also that was excommunicated.
Yeah. Yes, they've been excommunicated, they have been removed. Yes. So this conflict will go on, then that is the human face of the church. Human face of the church. We are not yet up there. The church is still a pilgrim church. And in this pilgrimage, this journey, it has to constantly reform itself. Ecclesia semper reformanda is in the Latin. The church is always in need of reform or reformation. Okay? Shall we call it a day? I thank you very much. Shall we just stop? Shall we just conclude with a Hail Mary? Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Thank you. Thank you.